Hey there, before we get into our episode, this is Fred and Tom here. We want to tell you a little bit about our Patreon.
That's right. You guys thought you were buying ad-free, but we got some ad copy to read to you.
Yes. We want to tell you about exciting way where you can get more content, more takes, more insight from your two favorite podcasters, Fred and Tom of Show Me the Franchise.
That's right. But instead of just showing you the franchise, we're going to show you the Patreon with the Show Me the Patreon channel.
Yes, with the Patreon, you will be getting one additional episode. What else do we want to tell them about, Tom?
We'll give them exclusive sneak peeks for things that are coming up, Fred, and you'll get early access to other things that maybe other people don't know about yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything exciting that's going on in the world of pop culture or anything else that we cover, we could cover it on the Patreon.
That's true. Now, you can get it all for just a low price of $1 per month.
What?
$1 per month, and you'll be getting a free bonus episode every month, in addition to our regular feed, which will, of course, remain free to you. But if you want that extra, real meaty content,
yeah, instead of getting the traditional 2 episodes a month, you would get an extra episode.
That's 3 episodes a month. How can you say no to 3? 3 times as nice, 3 times as sweet.
Beautiful.
Thank you for listening, and on with the show.
It's time for Show Me the Franchise
with Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
It's time for Show Me the Franchise
With Thomas and Frederick. With Thomas and Frederick.
Welcome to Show Me the Franchise, the podcast that talks about franchises of all shapes, sizes, backgrounds, genres, and types. I am one of your hosts, Tom Stadler, here with the real MVP of this podcast, Mr. Fred Egan. Fred, how you doing?
That's good, right?
Yeah, no, you got it, man.
Yeah.
That's
I'm excited
courage.
to be here, Tom. It's a beautiful day. There's not too much wind. I feel it would be a good day, if you wanted to go outside, throw the ball around.
Yeah, have a catch, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm still buzzing a little bit recently because off of just having a catch, I think of Field of Dreams with that line. And that whole bit recently at the Oscars where Mulaney just starts describing the plot of Field of Dreams and just the whole like poking the hole in the shtick of Burt Lancaster not being able to return to the field once he walks off.
Yeah, I loved it. That was probably my favorite joke of the Oscars. I feel like that's just how I am most of the time, just like over explaining movies to people. So I was loving it.
Yeah, it was a very relatable moment. And if anyone has not figured out what we were talking about this week, our topic is baseball, but specifically something that is very near and dear, especially to my heart and to the hearts of many in the great state of Wisconsin and especially the Milwaukee area. And that is the Milwaukee Brewers Baseball Club. Brewers are located in Milwaukee, have been here. Well, we'll talk a little bit about that on and off for a long time. And here to talk to us about the Milwaukee Brewers, Fred, is a great comedian in the state of Wisconsin who's made his way up and down the state, Mr. John Egan. John, welcome to the show.
Hello, boys. Oh, I just wanted to jump in for Oscars talk. Let's do this. No,
Did you have a response to the John Mulaney bit?
Oh, I loved it. I love Mulaney. So that was great. They are almost, the Oscars are almost back to being tolerable, which I really enjoy. I'm a big movie guy, so I loved it. It was so great DVRing it and then coming back at 9 and just plowing through it was so amazing. That was a game changer for me.
I bet that is the way to watch it, though. Sure.
I don't need costumes. I want to see who wins. Fast forward. Let's see the major ones. Let's see the fun little things, and let's go home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was good to see everyone get those trophies that day. It was fun going to your house, having some good food, Tom.
Yeah, we did. We enjoyed.
We all watched it together.
Oh yeah, it was an event.
Oh,
it's been like a 3 years in the making event, maybe 4.
The improv club I'm in, we used to watch it every year together.
Oh, really?
So we'd have our sheets. You'd fill it out. You'd pay a couple bucks. The winner got all the money. We did the themed dishes. We went all out for a long time.
That's pretty awesome. I do love a good Oscars party that does theme dishes too, because I think it's like you can make, nachos or, a chicken dip any day, right? Like what I want to see is what can you tie back to the movies that we've seen? And
Mhm.
yeah, so like I don't know, but we were pretty loose with it. Like we did, like I did a Reuben dip just because Killian Murphy was up for. But, I mean, it was more for St. Patrick's Day coming up,
Right,
but
for sure.
I was trying to make something work with poor things and onion rings, but I don't know. I couldn't really nail that joke, but I felt they were so close to each other. There was something there.
you
Yeah,
would need to belch out gas bubbles after you ate those, though, too.
would. But
But we're not here to
Either
talk
way.
about the Oscars. We just spent a whole episode doing that not too long ago. So we are here this week to talk about the Brewers, which I mean, what would be your guys' pitch for a Field of Dreams related dish, or maybe a Brewers related dish? We'll have to maybe talk a little about that too. You guys can think about it.
Well, it's
You
got
can let it go.
something with corn and beer. I
Yeah.
feel.
I mean, just the Brewers though, brats. There's definitely that. But
That's
John,
true.
as a very avid Brewers fan, and we'll
Yes.
talk a little bit about some of your social presence too, because I'm very I get a big kick out of, out of it too. But um, what is some of your experience with the Brewers? Like, when did you first recall going to even like a game or start really following the team?
Yeah, so it's pretty vivid. My dad had season tickets after the World Series era, and I remember very vividly, like 5, 6, 7. He had season tickets on the third base line, like 10 rows up at County Stadium. And so I remember always going there and getting the Snickers ice cream was like the highlight of the game because they had
Oh
giant
wow,
ice cream Snickers bars and they would walk around and get for like $3. And so that was my big treat every time we went that I loved getting. And so that's a big memory for me. Also, I still have hanging up in my basement a Robin Yount Sports Illustrated giveaway poster. So as soon as I got it, I brought it home and I framed it. And it's been in that same frame basically ever since for probably like 20, 25 years.
oh my God, that's awesome. I
Yeah,
love it.
so it's yeah, so that's what I remember going. And so when I was a kid, we went. My dad, I'm the oldest of 4, so we didn't really do season tickets a little after that, after all the kids came. But then I jumped really hard back into it in high school because 2 of my best friends, Paul and Matt, who do my podcast with me, they were huge Brewer fans as well. So that we kind of all bonded on that.
That's fantastic. So what era was that you really started to follow that again? Was that kind of like right as they moved to the National League, or are we talking a little bit later?
So this would have been 99, 2000. So just
Okay.
the terrible years, just the Matt Stairs starting in left field for the Brewers. Like that is a legit bit with me and my friends because like we would just say climbing the stairs and pretend we were climbing in the stairs with our hand in the bleachers because there's nothing else to do. You're just goofing around because tickets were cheap. So
The team was just pretty bad. I mean, we were a couple years removed from the 100-loss season. That was
yes,
not
very
good.
close.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I was tempted to jump in, but I wanted to let you keep going because we also, well, my dad's company had season tickets on the third base line, probably
Oh, really?
about
Okay.
6 or 7 or 8 rows up. So there's a very decent chance we probably were sitting by each other at County Stadium back in the day.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like your guys' own
2002
past
was
lives
amazing.
thing.
This is what was the word they used in that?
I am not going to attempt it because I don't remember. But you guys
But it's
definitely
like-
could have had it. You could have been like right over each other's shoulders. That's pretty magical.
Yeah. That was a great view though. I love that area in County Stadium too.
Yeah, it was just great. And I have vivid memories of going to the bleachers like on Saturday or Sunday afternoon games. And that's something that's never been replicated in my opinion, which is kind of sad because that place was crazy during County Stadium. That was a madhouse because you entered your own entrance from the back. You had your own vendors, your own bathrooms, and then you just baked in the sun. It was just constantly dudes with mustaches and kind of mullets with no shirt screaming. Like that's just what it was, just an aura. It's like being like in the student section of the Badgers game when it is actually full, like when it used to be full. So
Oh yeah. Well, that's been a long time since that's happened.
yeah. So like early 2000s, early mid.
Yeah, Barry Alvarez era, we're talking there for sure.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, my favorite thing I think is like, and I think the Journal Sentinel even had a photo recently of guys walking into a Brewer game back. It might have been the 70s or the 80s, and this dude's just got a 24 rack of MGD on his shoulder, and he's looking back at the camera that took a picture of him. And I'm like, how could you actually bring your own beer into the game? They barely let you bring water into the games now.
Right. Yeah. Water, you can do the thing in the packaging. You got the clear bag is the way to go now. Just fill that baby up. And people actually gave me good advice last year. So what you do is you freeze your water bottles, then you throw them in the bag so they're still cold while you're in the stadium.
Oh, that's a really good idea.
Right?
Man,
That's pretty brilliant. So I try to grab snacks and water and stuff now to go in the game, just because I know after, especially if I'm not like driving, I know I'm just gonna keep drinking. So then I'm just gonna buy $12 peanuts. So I should bring my own stuff in and rehydrate. But hey, we successfully as fans bullied them to lower water prices. So that's
That's
I mean,
true.
at least it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. But you're still paying $12 for a 16-ounce Miller Lite there.
Yeah.
I still have a little trouble with that, which is, I think, speaks to why the tailgating culture has persevered, I think, for as long as it has, which is something I'll definitely want to talk to you guys about a little bit more. What about you, Fred? What was some of your experience? Because knowing that you are not somebody who grew up in Wisconsin, what were your experiences with baseball in general growing up, and then when you got here with the Brewers?
Well, when I would go see baseball growing up, it would be the Orioles in Baltimore, because I was from the East Coast, Baltimore area. At that time, it was like Cal Ripken Jr., Rafael Palmeiro, kind of like. I remember going and I knew the players. That was like the last time that was a thing. And I remember really enjoying going to Orioles games. It's a great field they have out there. It was pretty new. I remember going on a field trip to the Baltimore Stadium because it was just like a new stadium. And I can't remember the name of it. My first Brewers game, I think, was with you right after COVID, and like 3-4 years ago, whenever that was. And
How
it was
did I
a
not
really
know
good
that?
time. I think we sat in like some bleacher seats, and it was a really good time. We went
This
out
was like full
afterwards.
access, or still when they were like spreading people out for like 6 months?
It was fully opened at that
Okay.
time, I'm pretty sure. Because I remember like we had been talking about going for a while, and you guys were kind of charting how full they were filling up the stadium until it was like we were like, all right, let's go. I remember it not feeling constricted when we went, at least.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, good question. Because I think it might have been every other row still at that point. I do remember going like fresh into 2021, like when they first were allowing people back in. And for that time, I kind of loved it because I was like, we are in, my partner and I are in two seats. Nobody is like right on top of us because sometimes you do get those seats where the
Yep.
people have got the elbows like right into your sides. But yeah, after like one or two times of that, I'm like, I kind of miss the big crowds. This is not how you want to watch it.
Yeah, my wife and I went in like that May of that year when they were still doing 50%, and we loved it. It was just like, it was a different aura because you were excited that you got to go to baseball again. You got to watch them. And the fact that people were spread out. Like, so you had people like diagonally from you. So like you were just hanging out with people. People were actually like talking. Like we met everyone around us. We were hanging, like people were cheering for the game. Like it obviously is not the same, but it was just full, not the riffraff were gone. The riffraff, like the extra little riffraff that's not needed there was not there. And that sounds very hoity-toity, I feel. But for a period, it was nice. But because like I was there, and then you compare it to when I was there last year for the Giannis jersey game, that first one, absolute madhouse, just insanity from top to bottom, that game.
Yeah. Well, and how many people are you pulling in that haven't watched the Brewers maybe ever just because they want the jersey at that point, right? Like,
yes. So there was a lot of Giannis fans, but I mean Bucks fans, which was nice. I mean, you saw a different group, but that was the game where I think Lauer blew it against the Cardinals really bad. Not a good showing by the team. And then, people like as we're walking in, getting our jerseys, people walking out with 8 Giannis jerseys, just clearly bought cheapest tickets. to clearly just go and sell, because we were going on eBay immediately. We're like, okay, how much are these selling right now? 67. Oh, okay. All right.
Man, I might pay it though. Just get to. I didn't get to go to that game, but it sounds like I didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I'm sure this one will be good too. I see it's white, but I love that jersey. So it was worth it.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's a great time going to games. I think, as we were kind of talking about before we started recording here, it's, going to the game and the environment around being at now American Family Field, which I'm still not quite used to saying. It's still Miller Park in my heart, always will be.
Yeah.
But I think the culture around going to a game is something huge, and I think the neighborly feeling you get from a lot of people in Milwaukee, that you could have a conversation with somebody who is right next to you is such a cool feeling. I'm a little jealous, Fred, that you got to go see like Cal Ripken Jr. though a lot in person, because
Yeah,
I don't
for sure.
remember seeing
It
the
felt like a big deal. Like, I just remember watching, like when you watch Space Jam, how like at the end Michael Jordan comes out and it has all this fanfare and like stuff going off. In my recollection, that was what happened like anytime Cal Ripken stepped to the plate when I would go to those games. It was like in an event, and that was very cool to see.
So,
Yeah.
I also
so
lived
seeing
in
Cal Ripken
Georgia
Jr.
for a
play
while.
was like seeing Michael Jordan play the Monstars, is what you're saying. That's a really good quote for the byline of the episode.
Yeah.
Well, I lived in Georgia for a little while too, and I saw Chipper Jones play, and I know like in the South at least they loved him, and that was a lot of. I knew at least 3 people with dogs called Chipper.
My gosh. So you got to watch the Orioles and the Braves growing up, Fred, which is a perfect segue, I think, to start talking about the history of the Milwaukee Brewers.
Ooh,
Y-
do you?
Because I don't know if you knew this, Fred, but the Brewers have a tie to both the Orioles and the Atlanta Braves.
Well, people say I don't read the dossier, but I do. No, I learned that today when I read over the notes, and I was like, these Brewers are just like me. They came
These
from the
Brewers.
East and settled in the Midwest. Spent some time down south.
A little bit. We moved around. They moved around a little bit. So yeah, just to talk a little bit about that history that we are referencing right now. So the Brewers team, at least the name, really came from as far back as the late 1800s. So if anyone's not familiar with baseball, baseball is old as shit. Like it was developed in the middle
Very true.
of the 19th century. Yeah. Um, and the modern Baltimore Orioles actually trace their roots all the way back to Milwaukee when the Brewers were part of the Western League, which was a minor league back in 1877. So I guess they had reorganized from some other, who calls it the Whippersnapper League or something else. I didn't get that far back in the research. But basically, this league inevitably became what is now the American League in the year 1900. So the Brewers spent 1 year playing in Milwaukee before they moved. And during that season, they played at the Lloyd Street grounds, which I don't even know what that would have looked like. But apparently, this was a stadium that was located between 16th and 18th Street in Milwaukee. And I'm trying to like I think the only reference point I have for that is like thinking like around like National Avenue, like between 16th and 18th. But that's just sort of like, I feel like it's like a Home Depot now or something like that. So, I mean, I think it's probably so old, there probably is not a lot of record on it, but very interesting either way. So the Brewers then moved to St. Louis to become the Browns and stayed there for 50 years before they inevitably moved to Baltimore and became the Orioles in 1954. So around that time, the Brewers, well, not the Brewers, but then the Braves came from Boston. So in 1953, the Boston Braves moved to Milwaukee and became the Milwaukee Braves. So at that time as well, Milwaukee County Stadium, which we were just talking about at the top of this episode, was built for the first time. And it was located well, at that time, it was called 201 South 46th Street. I think now it's just one Brewers Way, or is that not even like the same street? I can't think of like.
That could
Right.
easily
I think
be the
that's what
same.
it's
Yeah,
called.
yeah, usually makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, everything around there has been renamed after like players and the Brewers, and even Brewers Way was what, Miller Parkway not even 5
Yep.
years ago.
For sure.
Yeah. So Braves ended up playing in Milwaukee for almost 12 years. And during that time, they actually did win a World Series back in 1957, where they also had an MVP and a little known guy named Hank Aaron, and a Cy Young winner that same year with Warren Spahn. So that's the only World Series that Milwaukee has on its record to date. So not even with the same franchise.
No Brewers World Series.
No, unfortunately, which they got close though. They got very, very close. And we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. But it was in 1965 then that the Braves moved to Atlanta and have remained there ever since, and leaving Milwaukee without baseball for almost 15 years after that point. One thing I did gloss over, that between 1902 and 1952, there was a Milwaukee Brewers team that was part of the American Association, which is a league I was not familiar with. Have you ever heard of that, John?
Nope, I have not.
Yeah. And then there was the Milwaukee Bears that were part of the Negro National League. And both of these clubs played at Borchert Field, which was located on like North 7th Street and Chambers in Burleigh. Yeah. Another area, I can't exactly put it down. If you try looking any of these up in Google Maps, you'll probably get a pretty good idea. But it's definitely not somewhere you would be like, oh yeah, there's a baseball field there.
I'm sure it's right, unrecognizable. It's probably a Walmart or a Subway or a closed down Pizza Hut.
I did just type in Burleigh and 7th Street here.
Trying to get that aerial view.
Yeah, I'm like looking at it. So I guess there is kind of like, there's like a lot of grass, like overgrown grass behind a fence, but it's right in the middle of like a neighborhood. Yeah, very. So I wonder if that's kind of where it was, but you can barely tell if there was ever a baseball field there. It's all just housing now.
Okay.
But anyway, so fast forwarding then back again to the year 1969, a expansion team was created in Seattle, Washington, that was then known as the Seattle Pilots. So this club played for one season in the American League West Division before they went bankrupt and were acquired by Bud Selig in bankruptcy court, who promptly moved the team back to Milwaukee here. In 1970, then they were officially became the Milwaukee Brewers once more, and would stay as the Brewers that we now know and love today, 54 years later here. Before this 1972 season, the Brewers agreed to switch over to the American League East in order to make room for the reigning champions right now, the Texas Rangers. So they were also being added to the league. So the Brewers then played some competitive ball for a few years, but did not make the playoffs until 1981, where they had won the AL East division, but then went on to lose to the Yankees in a best-of-5 divisional series. So I'm glossing over a lot of like the trades and all the things that fueled that, because wasn't it that Raleigh Fingers, didn't he? I think he got acquired that year, right?
I believe so. With that, the older stuff is a pretty big blind spot for me. Like I know the basics and obviously the 82 stuff. I know I read that 50th anniversary book, and 1.5. There two came out the same year. So I read 1.5. And so as you can tell, the history just stays with me.
Yeah.
Just pinpoint accuracy.
Oh, here you go. So yeah, it looks like he was traded to. So check out this trade. This is kind of crazy. He was acquired by the Cardinals in 1980. And then that like winter, they traded him and Pete Vukovich and Ted Simmons to the Brewers in exchange for a package basically built around Sixto Lezcano, who had like one of like the great seasons in Brewers history that never gets talked about. It was like a 40-40 season, I'm pretty sure.
He was very good.
Yeah, so at the time it looked like a fleecing, but inevitably they traded the Brewers two Cy Young or soon to be Cy Young winners. Because I think it was in '81 then that Raleigh Fingers did go on and win both the Cy Young and the MVP award for the Brewers. So that following year, Cardinals weren't looking so hot, but they end up getting the last laugh here.
Yeah.
Because that in 1982, then the Brewers ended up winning their division and made the playoffs again, but this time made it all the way to the World Series, which is now their only World Series appearance to date. They ended up facing the Cardinals in a best-of-7 series and lost in 7 games to those Cardinals. I guess I wasn't quite privy to the fact that the Cardinals were the ones who traded them, all those guys. So it's kind of crazy that they were able to still beat them 2 years later after that.
Right. Well, and the fact that the Brewers, they should have easily won that series. Raleigh Fingers was hurt, and I believe someone else, another major player, I always forget who the other guy was, but Fingers was gone and someone else was, where they could have easily probably taken that game 7 or even game 5 if they needed to.
Right. Yeah. You lose the reigning Cy Young winner. It's sort of like, it's a big missing piece in a winner take all series. Right. So yeah, probably was the deciding factor, but it was that Pete Vukovich who was traded by the Cardinals that ended up winning the Cy Young in 1982 for the Brewers. And they also had an MVP winner that year too with Robin Yount, who as aforementioned by John, is on a wall in his basement.
Yep.
Forwarding on here to 1994, due to divisional realignment, the Brewers were moved to the American League Central Division up until 1997, where they would finally move to the National League Central and have been there ever since. So Brewers moved to the National League in 97, and then construction began just the year prior on what is now American Family Field, then known as Miller Park, which was one of the largest construction projects in the history of the state. So it was built with $290 million of public funds from a 0.1 sales tax or 0.1% sales tax that began at the very beginning of 1996 and did not end until March 31st, 2020, which, is a pretty insignificant date in hindsight.
Yeah, nothing happened. So
Yeah, sure.
nothing was going on.
No, nothing. We were just like, oh yeah, cool. The tax end. Hey, you guys hear about this disease going around?
Yeah. Week 3 of lockdown. Clearly this won't happen for the rest of the year.
Oh man, at least the taxes were off. Everybody's.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's
point.
definitely no toilet paper, but that 0.01 was off our escrow. Thank God.
Yeah. So Miller Park officially opened in 2001, with the first pitch being thrown by then U.S. President George W. Bush. It's at the first home game in the park on April 6, 2001. Since their move to
nothing
the NL,
else happened that year either.
No, totally, inconspicuous.
Smooth sailing for Bush, yeah.
It does kind of feel like that's almost kind of emblematic of how cursed the Brewers are, right? Like, hey, we got a new ballpark, but the country's about to change for the worse ultimately for the next 23 years. So since their move to the National League, the Brewers have won the Central Division 4 times and have had 3 wildcard berths. 4 total Brewers have won MVP during their franchise history. So I mentioned Raleigh Fingers, who had won in 1981. Robin Yount won in 1982 and in 1989. Ryan Braun won in 2011, a very non-problematic campaign, as we now know.
Will nothing happen?
No. And then Christian Yelich most recently in the year 2018. 3 pitchers have also won Cy Young. So Raleigh Fingers again in 1981. That's pretty freaking insane to think of a closer who would win MVP and Cy Young in the same year.
That's a talent. That's called a little bit of a talent there.
Yeah, that's almost unheard of now.
Also, lack of superstars. We could also put that. I think it was just good baseball, but not a lot of people can name, top 10 players in 1981.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, try to do it off the top of your head. I mean, you're going to have Robinade probably on that list, but
Right. You can have a couple Brewers, a couple other players, but like most folks will not, unless you like, you might know your own team. But 1981 does not scream, the most talented baseball players ever.
Right. Yeah, coming off a very, very popular era in the 70s too, especially. I think that's definitely a piece of it. Pete Vukovich won in 1982. And then Corbin Burns, most recently, now a member of the Baltimore Orioles in the year 2021, he won. So 3 players have also been named Rookie of the Year. Pat Listash in 1992, Ryan Braun again in 2007, and Devin Williams in 2020. So 8 people, and maybe some guys on that list, have been inducted into Cooperstown. John, I was going to try and quiz you. Do you know who they all are?
Oh, I'm sure I don't, but I'm sure it's Fingers. I'm sure it's Yount, Molitor, Uecker. Technically, he's inducted, but it's like an honorary or like a broadcasting thing. It's like one of those things for Hall of Fame. I would say Uglitch, Hank Aaron. I'm not sure if they count that. Oh, yeah, no, because he did play for the Brewers, so he would. He came back for his last 2 seasons to play for the Brewers. You know what? I don't know. I don't know every single one.
Yeah, so Uecker actually apparently is not in the proper Hall of Fame, but another non-player is. But you could probably guess who based on his resume.
Seelig.
Yeah. The last 3, so I did mention one of the guys. He was in a trade mentioned recently with Raleigh Fingers. Not Vukovich.
Oh, it's Simmons, I'm sure.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. These last 2 are tough because another one was a trade target. I think it was in 1982. I might be wrong. It might be 1981, but Don Sutton. And then Trevor Hoffman also.
Okay. Yep. You're right.
Which is tricky because those are not the guys. Those 3 right there are not guys you would be like, oh yeah, they are classic Milwaukee players, right? They are
right. No, I did see Hoffman's first game, the first game he closed for the Brewers, and that Hell's Bells thing was the coolest thing ever. The first time that happened, just that entrance was just insane. I mean, if you're young, if you like the trumpets from Diaz on the Mets, that is kind of the same aura. It just. When those bells started striking, it was goosebumps. Like it was just so crazy. It was so cool.
It was. So Fred, I don't know if you are familiar with Trevor Hoffman, but so there was a guy who was a closer for the Brewers, and like so have you seen the movie Major League?
I have.
Okay.
Is this kind of like a Wild thing?
Yeah. And actually, I think that got cited. I think there's some people who dispute it, but I think the idea of a closer coming in or a pitcher coming in at the end of the game to a song was kind of introduced from Major League with Charlie Sheen coming into Wild Thing. And so Trevor Hoffman, who was a closer for the San Diego Padres for a long time, came to the Brewers too, but his whole thing was he come into AC/DC's Hell's Bells, and they would kind of like dim the lights in the stadium and just play it, and he would just come out on the field, and it is like you said, John, a goosebumps inducing.
Yeah,
it's so
then
cool.
you get it's not like the middle, it's the beginning. So it's like the pause and the dings, and they show the bells on the big screen, and then the lights dim, and like who else? Chapman was cool because I saw him at the Red when he was with the Reds before he started beating women, and so he could have already, who knows? But when he came in, because we saw him actually back-to-back nights, and both times he closed because the Brewers lost. Yay! But that was very cool because they would do fire. They do fire at that stadium for the Reds, and that was cool each night because it would go red. All the lights would go out, like so cool. Something that I don't know why doesn't happen enough. I get some players aren't really into that, but just adding wrestling to sports never hurts. It doesn't. It always enhances the experience. Like the fact that the Packers do the tunnel, like the Michael Jordan Bucks thing. Not the Bucks, the Bulls. The song the Bulls used to come out to that everyone knows from Jock Jams. Like that enhances sports.
Yeah, it does.
What would you guys like to come out to?
Ooh.
Here's the thing. I feel like my music tastes are so like douchey where it's just for me, but like for like if it was like at this moment, the current Cody Rhodes song, I really love the beginning, and then it just gets really bad. Like the beginning of Cody Rhodes' entrance is so cool, and then the song is so bad that it makes me laugh. But like the beginning 45 seconds, I would love to come out of her. It was on a loop. There's also this other song called like Shivering. So it's like this DJ guy who always does thing. And again, first 45 seconds is like the coolest wrestling entrance theme to a sports ever. And then it gets really bad where there's no talking or music for a long time. So those are mine. So, those obscure references, half the people listening will not know, that they can research if they want.
Oh, I would not undersell the amount of wrestling fans out there. I think
There's
if
a
you
lot,
mentioned
I'm sure.
Cody Rhodes, yeah, people will get that. I haven't watched it a long time, but I mean, I respect the game. I think
No,
it's
yeah.
fun.
My son is getting a little older. He's almost 8, and so we only watch the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. But he loves it
Oh,
because
nice.
that's the ones to watch. That the big spectacle. Like it was like the Royal Rumble to me is the coolest part because it's just so random and it's so crazy and so we still watch those because we just love stealing Peacock free trials. Don't complain about Peacock. They're giving it away. Watch the
Yeah.
playoff games and cancel. It doesn't take too much effort.
Hey, hop on the cock and then get off. That's just
So easy.
I think, and yeah, it's funny. I do think that is there's only a couple things that really draw people to Peacock, but my brother-in-law pays for it to get soccer because he watches the EPL all the time.
Oh
So
yeah. Okay.
I pick up off of his stuff, so I catch all those like random shows they have on there. But yeah, good question, Fred. I don't know. I've been trying to go through my head like what's like a song that would really be emblematic, and all I can think about right now is like that scene in Always Be My Maybe. I don't know why I'm picking up on this, but like when Keanu was walking into the restaurant to sail, and like I'm just like it's just in my head that like I could make that look cool. I'm just like
Oh, thank
walking
God. I
out.
was hoping you weren't going to pick a douchey song. I'd probably do Hungry Like the Wolf. Let's move on.
uh, nothing wrong, Duran Duran.
Oh, yeah. The beginning of that song would be a great entrance, I think.
Yeah. I mean, maybe this is a good opportunity though for us to talk a little bit about the fanfare around the team though, and just like the stadium in general. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on American Family Field?
I still love it just because I grew up going there, and when it was for Miller Park, we started going there, and especially high school and stuff into college. Like I had a huge group of friends in college who we every summer we would go to 6 to 10 games together. So we'd go right when the park opened, like on Saturday for 6-10 games. We'd start right at 3. We'd sometimes go to West Dallas and go to the bars we knew because one of our buddies' uncles owned it. It was a whole day. So like before we all had kids and got a little older and people moved away, but that's like a home for me. That I seriously call that my second home. I love that place so dearly. I love it, and I can't. I get so excited to go every single time. It makes me happy, and so yeah, I'm a huge fan.
That's great.
That's how I feel probably about the Magic Kingdom.
That's fair.
Hey man, whatever floats your boat. I mean that's for sure.
I'm planning my first family Disney trip right now.
Oh, hell yeah. Well, I got the tips. Let me know. I went for my honeymoon.
Excellent. No, because we gotta wait for flights because they released the packages for next year, and
Sure.
I know that January area is pretty good because the weather's nice and it's cheaper. So we got that down. Now we got to wait for Southwest to stop being pussies about releasing those flight times,
Right.
so I can book all that because that'll depend on when I book the trip. Is when the flight's on there. So I joined a couple of the Facebook groups. I got the moms working for me, doing all the tips. I got it down. But so I know, like 7 days flight there, 4 parks. You do 2 parks, take a day off. I know. So you do the pool, and then you can go to the Disney shops where all the merch that you can buy on all the parks is there. So you don't have to go in the parks and buy that crap. You can buy it all in one day, bring it all back to you, and then enjoy the park. So I'm in.
Hell yeah.
I research.
Gosh, it's been a long time since I've been to Disney. But yeah, I mean, I do think there's a lot of fanfare around Disney, I think, especially in the Midwest, because everybody's like craving those winter trips to like I need to go somewhere warm. Why not just go to Disney? Like they got it all there. So totally makes sense. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Back to Miller Park or American Family Field, whatever. It's the same thing. It's
You can
Miller
call it
Park.
Miller Park.
It's Miller Park.
Yeah, it's
I
all
mean,
over. I mean, that's why I call it AmFam Clam. It's easier to say. That's what we've been calling it since we changed. AmFam
That's
Clam.
fun.
It kind of looks like a clam with the roof closed, so it's the AmFam Clam, and then it's easier to say.
It's true. The AmFam Clam, the clam, if you will, we could call it that. I liked when people called it the keg, though, too, when it was Miller Park. I thought that was a very fun nickname for it. But I think there is something about, like, is it the most state-of-art stadium anymore? No. I mean, we just talked about it. It's 22 years old now, or 23 this year. And I mean, it's showing its age a little bit, which is why we had this whole push and pull in 2023 where lawmakers were trying to get this thing funded to make the updates. I mean, we could talk a little bit about some of the ownership and some of the recent struggles with cash flow or the classic struggles that has existed pretty much as long as this team has been around. But I think the efforts to try and at least keep the stadium going and not put the taxpayers in a position where they have to be funding a team for 25 years again is one that obviously a lot of people are going to be in for. So it's definitely a place that I think when you've grown up around it, you get used to it. There's a nice, like, I don't know, like you said, a familial feeling. It feels like a second home. Like the people there are very nice. The vendors are nice, but I mean, the in-game presentation too, they really do. They keep you entertained. And I think it's something that the Fiserv Forum does too very well. But I think they kind of stole a lot of those ideas from what American Family Field was doing because they know there's a lot of young kids there and they have to entertain them mid-game, right?
Yep. Yeah, my kids did like the batting cages for the first time on the lower level last year and that type of stuff. So yeah, it's again not the state of the art, but there's still enough to do, and it's really is good for people. You know, there's different sections, different things to do, so different spots that have different stuff, and they're trying to add stuff. Obviously, how they didn't see that X Golf wasn't going to be a laughing stock is very funny, but I'm sure it makes them very good money in the off season for corporate stuff that a lot of companies in Wisconsin, I'm sure, for an outing in December to go to Miller Park or AmFam Clam and have a golf outing, I'm sure is very cool for at times.
Yeah.
And for me now, the clubhouse sale is a national holiday for me.
Oh, yes. Get anything good this year? Or has that not happened yet?
No, it happens every December. So it's like
That's
the first weekend of December. So I take off work, I drop the kids off at school, I drive down, I go right as early as I can. Then I drive back up, and then I have myself a little me lunch, have a couple drinks, usually go to the outlet mall on the way up and spend more money. And then I go home with usually because they'll have sweatshirts, plushes. I have my little Keston Hira plush from there.
Oh, that's great.
Hashtag Team Hira plush. There's a select few of us who grab those. And so it's a fun day for me. I make it a whole thing.
It's a great reason to come down to the city too, if you need to make an excuse for it too. I think not even just the clubhouse sale itself, but yeah, to come to a game. I think if you're not in the local Milwaukee area, which I forgot for a second, I was like, what's the big deal about driving up? But yeah, obviously coming down from northern Wisconsin, it's like, okay, yeah, you gotta make some time for it, even if it is only, a couple hours or something like that. That's a significant effort. And I think that area has done such a great job, or the stadium itself has done a great job of adding a lot of different things. Yeah. X Golf not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I think, especially mid game. Are you going to watch the game or are you going to play in a golf simulator? Right. It's like,
right.
That's kind of silly, but yeah, for the off season, that's definitely things that they want to get going. But yeah, there's so many kids activities. I mean, I know even my nephews, when they go with my sister and my brother-in-law, like, my nephew wants to run the speed test, right? He wants to try and throw the ball and see how hard he can throw it. And I think I only think about, because I haven't been to a ton of other stadiums in the nation, and maybe, you could speak to that, or even Fred, from what you remember from a couple that you visited, but there aren't a lot of other places I feel like that offer all the different types of activities you can find at AmFam Clam.
No, I know like the one in Baltimore was probably the closest, but I don't remember a lot of that at the Atlanta stadium. I was gonna ask, have either of you, since we're kind of talking about like amenities and things to do, either of you done a baseball game where you've been in like a nice, I don't know if they have boxes in the baseball stadium, but like the
Oh yeah.
special treatment. I want to know, like, have you guys ever done anything like that? Because that's something, as not a sports fan, but I've always wanted to do, is kind of like special box, the food, the treatment. Have you guys done that?
I have not, and that's like a bucket list item for me. I have not been able to do it. Just not been like with the right company or right people to do it. The closest to me is the 300 section at AmFam is pretty close to that. You get your own entrance, you get your own concessions. You're like underneath. They serve you stuff you can order from your phone, all that stuff. So it's like almost a close to the box. But no, I have not done that yet at a sporting event and want to really bad.
Yeah. I think though, it's also not easily accessible all the time. Which is maybe my one big critique of a lot of the stuff with boxes, and even with a few of like the special areas that the stadium has. And they have a lot, but they're not cheap, and they know that they can get these big corporate groups to come out and spend the money on doing that. Because I've done, I think, a number of them, but also just kind of happen to be right place, right time for a lot of these. Like, you have, suites that are available for corporate events. I had a company that rented one out because the guys who were in charge of the company were they were former baseball players, like in college. So they were huge baseball fans. So they spent the money to get, their whole department to come and, get in the suite. And it was very cool. Like, you get all the free food and all that. I mean, it's a cool experience. I think the one I really liked recently was we had a connection, a friend of a friend, or for Northwestern Mutual, and they got us tickets to the like Northwestern Mutual deck, and that I thought was even a better deal than like the club like boxes or anything like that, because you're
Is
still
that the
kind of
outfield one or the one in right field on the bottom?
It's like no, it's the outfield one. So it's like I think it's on the third deck proper, like up yeah, kind of like if you go up directly from where left field ends.
Yeah.
It's like right there. So the view is what it is, but you're out there, and I think the food there that I saw was even better than they have in some of the boxes. I was pretty impressed. They had guys shaving meat. It looked like you were at like a country club brunch.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, that's the kind of the stuff. But I actually have also done the right field front. I sound so like fucking persnickety right now, like, or not persnickety, but I sound like very bougie. Like, oh yes, I've done the Northwestern Mutual deck. I've done the right field front.
Hey, if you can do it, take those things.
I mean, I think it's cool to try and do some of these things. I think that is one thing they live off of too, is a lot of these corporate events. They have the Mountain Dew deck, or it was the Mountain Dew deck. Like, you had that.
Yep.
Yeah, like that party center that you can get like food and stuff. I think they offer so much of that because that's such a huge revenue stream for them.
And again, it was way back then, but they used to do Fridays or some Saturdays too, where the Dew Deck was like college night, and if you had a college ID, you could get like half off, and they just stack you in, and you could do things. And I still remember I was there with a bunch of my good friends, and so they were throwing out bobbleheads, like throwing them out to people. And so they threw it to one of my friend, and my other friend, Paul, grabbed it like right in front of him. Like it was going to him. Ben Sheets bobblehead, grabs it, like just grabs it. And so this became a thing for a very long time between them, that he kept being like, oh, you mean when you took my Ben Sheets bobblehead that was thrown clearly to me? Kept being brought up. So here's the thing. So then the guy gets married. Paul is the guy who grabbed the bobblehead. He's his best man. The day on the wedding, his best man speech gives him the bobblehead as a gift.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So kind of a fun little full circle thing where it's like, it was a core memory of him stealing that bobblehead in a Dew Deck during a college night.
Hey, that's the magic of the Brewers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Brings people and weddings together, and
it's true. I think, I think that is just what is kind of magical about baseball in general, though, is that there does seem to be such a blend of things. And I think Milwaukee's done a good job, even though they're not the oldest franchise in the league anymore. You can tell that they recognize though that baseball's been in Milwaukee. We talked about it in the history already for a long time. A lot of people have a lot of like fond memories. That's why there's a lot of odes to some of those players who were even on the Milwaukee Braves back then. And you get like the bobblehead nights that are like, get your, Hank Aaron, Milwaukee Braves, like bobblehead. I have and I don't have it nearby me, but I actually contributed to one of those bobbleheads, like copy. I had an opportunity to work on a project with the Brewers, and I got to work on Hank Aaron, who's one of my all-time favorite players. Just I grew up just loving watching like highlights of him on what was it, just ESPN, because you couldn't find any of that online at the time. But but I think it's just one of those cool things you get to do, and it's one of those things that they offer is just these cool memorabilia. I mean, there's so many reasons they're trying to bring you on. It's all sort of like these marketing ploys of like, come get your Giannis jersey, come get your Hank Aaron bobblehead, come get your Hank the dog bobblehead, whether it's Hank 3 or 4, whichever one we're on now.
I at least have 3 different versions of the bobblehead, which could be for each dog. So who knows?
You'll just inevitably like number them underneath, like this was Hank 3.0.
Yeah, I was going through one of my storage like rooms in the basement, and we found like 4 bobbleheads that we must have been keeping for people that we never gave. So we had extra Hank, and so my daughter loves dogs, so she got that one. I found the Paul Molitor sliding one in a baby blue, and
man,
that's up on my collection. So it's like, yeah, they just go over. But that's definitely anytime I see a thrift store or Goodwill or garage sale, I am looking for bobbleheads because people love just giving those things away.
They do. And people get crazy about collecting them too. I mean, we have the Bobblehead Museum here, the National Bobblehead Museum in Milwaukee. I've never been. Have either of you guys been?
No.
All I know is that there's a comedy podcast called Comedy Bang Bang, and a comedian does the Bobblehead Hall of Fame, Tim Baltz, which is very funny.
Yeah.
Right.
God, that is a great bit. I think I did listen to one of those episodes he was on.
Derek McCheechek is his name. He's the owner and proprietor of the Bobblehead Museum, and he has a perfect accent because he's from Chicago. So
yeah. Well, there's so many of those guys in the LA comedy scene too that are just Chicago, like born and raised, but then they're out in LA now, just like, well, I love it out here. I'm never going back to the Midwest. It's like, oh, good for you.
Right.
Not all of us.
They miss snow, but it's good out there. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that's something else that I did want to talk about because, we did talk about the fact that there is a roof on the stadium too. So there's never a rain out. I think that's one of the benefits too of having a stadium like American Family Field, where having the collapsible or the retractable roof, you never have to experience the rain delays that a stupid team like Minnesota, who decided not to put a roof because it was so beautiful, but now they face the inconsistencies. It's like, you guys get worse weather than us. What were you thinking?
Yeah, didn't another team just announce they're doing an open air stadium where it rains a bunch? I forgot where, but another team is
Seattle.
Very possible. I think they do have a retractable roof though in Seattle, and they do in Miami, which obviously also makes sense considering the fact that it's like ridiculously warm there, so you can have
right,
yeah,
but
days.
Chicago, there's always a lot of rain out. Pittsburgh, there's a ton of rain outs, and Cincinnati's right on the river, so sometimes it happens. So it's we're really the only ones in the Central who could guarantee a game that day.
Yeah, I mean, and
the fact that now they're even doing opening day and doing a day after, like with no one playing because they know there's going to be a bunch of snow and rainouts, is hilarious. The fact that like they already know it's like, well, the Brewers are playing the Mets, but don't count on it. It's probably Friday.
And it's like, oh, well, great. Because if this was in Milwaukee, we don't have to worry about that. We know it's going to be Thursday, which I think it's an underrated selling for following a team like this, where if you're planning a day to go to the game, barring you getting like terribly sick. Sorry, Fred, I'm just going to hit home right now, but
it's sensitive subject right now, man.
But you're guaranteed, like, your plans are not going to change. The game is going to go on, and you can plan on that, even if it's going to be pouring rain or, God forbid, snow on opening day, which I've definitely been to a game where it's sleeting and you just feel miserable inside that when you get outside. But What about the tailgating culture? I think that's something we can't talk about the stadium by because not every other team has that either. The tailgating culture is pretty massive. What are your guys' experiences with tailgating?
Oh, I'll just say, I was with good friends. I was surprised of how set up it was for tailgating compared to other places because I tailgated for a Brewers game. No, excuse me, for the Braves game, and literally it was just like a patch of dirt that we all parked near. It wasn't like this elaborate setup. It was I feel like at the Brewers Stadium, it's kind of like, look, we know all these people are gonna show up and they're all gonna want to pull a cork, and like we've got to like set this up perfectly. And it feels like almost just like a perfect symphony to set up people tailgating. I was just in awe watching all these little setups of people playing games. I know I must sound like an idiot because I'm sure this is how it always is, but I was just like taken aback that people had like these full grill setups. And then like it was also kind of like there was always one guy in every group that was, checking his watch, like, all right, I gotta turn the heat off the grill because we gotta go in a little bit. And like I feel like there's like a guy who's like, we gotta keep this on track. Where me, I was sitting in the parking lot. I was like, I'm kind of having a good time in the parking lot. Bring the baseball to me. But no, I had a great time tailgating with you guys last time.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again. I think it's good. What about you, John? What are some of your experiences or memories of doing it?
Oh yeah, that's good. It's never stopped for me. So
Hmm.
I've got three friends up here that we go to at least one game a year together, and so then I go to with friends to Milwaukee too. But we do the whole thing. Like we went to a Wednesday game last year where it was that hot game, like the
Oh, sure.
hottest game, like the hottest day in the summer last year. And of course we went to it, and we were behind Yelich in the bleachers where
Oh, wow.
we were just sweating our tails off. But we did the whole thing. We bring a grill that my buddy can pull up. He pulls up and grills. I have a giant blue and yellow retractable little tent thing that we can set up. We bring bags all the time. I have dice. Our tradition is now big bar dice. We play ship captain crew with giant dice that I have, and they're
Oh,
all
wow.
broke to shit now because we throw them on the concrete over and over. But we do that all the time now, just as a fun game to do before we go in. So I've got
That's
tables, everything. So I'm all in for tailgating. I love it. I think it's the coolest thing to do, and just to walk around and see people. Because to me, it's summer. Like that's summer to me, is just sitting in a t-shirt, sweating, with flip flops, 5 layers of suntan lotion with my hat, just drinking, eating, talk with people, goofing around, listening to music. Again, that's part of, I think, why it's my second home. It's just like where my people are, where I feel like I can just relax. Nothing else matters except just that.
Yeah. And I think you hit on something. I think you even kind of talked about it too a little bit, Fred. There is a community when you are talking about tailgating. You're not just there doing your own thing. You're not just there to sit in your own seat or whatever. Even when you're in the game, you're part of something kind of bigger, and you see that people have it. And I mean, I'm sure, John, you probably run into this before too. It's like you go there to tailgate, you have your whole setup, and you realize, oh my God, I forgot a lighter. How could I forget a lighter? And you know that there's only going to be somebody, a car over, if not 2 cars down from you, who's doing the same thing. And you're like, hey, can I borrow a lighter? And they're always happy to give it to you. Like, oh yeah, yeah. Do you need coal? Do you need anything else? And they'll give it right to you. And
Yeah,
it's
always
just,
have
I
a
think,
smoker. Have one smoker nearby, or just someone you know.
oh yeah,
Just
you
in case.
catch Oh yeah, yeah. You always have somebody, sucking heaters or getting their cigars out. Like, this is our day out here today. But it's great. I think you got people, everybody always contributes to, people are your food people who have like the gear, the coolers, the canopies, the chairs, the tables. And like I think that's what's so cool is you bring people together to do this thing to the point where it's like the game is kind of secondary. And I think I kind of talked about that's like the magic of baseball. I think that's the magic of Milwaukee baseball, though, even more so than a lot of other areas. You don't get that in Chicago, and I wish Craig Counsell would have realized that. But is that you don't get the people
Turns out
outside.
checks are a lot better to him than tailgate culture.
Yeah, exactly. He had enough of that over his lifetime. But he never got to participate in that as a player or a manager. It's his loss. His loss. Or I'm sorry, whatever Mark Atanasio said. Well, it's like, oh yeah, it's like, he's lost this city, or he's lost this
Oh, it's
team.
this lost this community. Yeah.
Yeah, it lost this community. I mean, and as much as Mark Atanasio can be a little full of shit, I don't think he's 100% wrong. But the sentiment's just sort of loaded a little bit.
For sure. If anything, Council fueled him. There's a part of me who is full Aaron Rodgers about this. I am full conspiracy that it's almost, I feel like Council knew that, hey, look, I have a chance to go to a big team for a lot of money. And there's also a good chance that this might fuel my team that has not given me my weapons that I needed to finally try to do something while I'm gone, while my best friend gets to manage the team. Like to me, it's almost like a 4D chess move, even though he's going to get booed and he deserves it. And I love, but he's also just enhanced the rivalry. So there's a lot more people angry about it than I am. I just could not believe he picked that. But again, it's 4 years, 4 or 5 years, and it's over. Then he can do whatever he wants. He can come back and be a commissioner. He can do whatever he wants. And, the fact that people welcome back, people are still excited about Braun. People are still excited about the fact that Packer fans still love Favre. I mean, like there's a lot of worse things you can do and still have fandom for sports.
Yeah. Like defrauding the people of Mississippi, but I guess
That's what I mean. Yeah,
Favre's-
you can literally be a criminal and still be cheered and have jerseys around your stadium for you is going to be a thing.
Maybe this is a good transition point too, to kind of talk a little bit about the legacy of the players, because I think to that point of Craig Counsell or even like Ryan Braun, who, I mean, yeah, in comparison or context with other things, was what he did so much worse than what some of the stuff that Brett Favre did. I mean, Brett Favre's got a lot of personal issues, like it's just a laundry list. But we're not here to talk about Brett Favre unless we're talking about his doppelganger Jeff Jenkins,
Right?
But I think when guys come to play for Milwaukee, they do kind of become a part of a legacy, especially if they are a great player. I mean, we talked about Robin Yount very briefly already, Hank Aaron, Paul Molitor, who I think has not quite embraced the team the same way those other two guys did. But there's definitely this legacy of like when these guys are come back or when they're on the team, you're seen as like, a legend, which is like not every New York Yankee is going to be a legend because you're constantly being compared to Mickey Mantle, or you have even Aaron Judge now, right? And it's like he's trying to make his print on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure Josh Donaldson will be more fondly remembered as a Brewer than a Yankee.
Yeah, which is saying something because he's only to the team for half a season, but still
2 months maybe. Yeah, if that.
Yeah, but I think there is something to the way that players kind of get treated here, which I think maybe they do get put on a little bit of a pedestal. The Packers have a little bit of that issue too, and I think the Bucks, just a little extent, never really have that same thing. If anything, I think they're almost more glorified appropriately for the Bucks, because
Bucks is pretty appropriate. I mean, people, like Brandon Jennings, Michael Redd, Ray Allen, like it's the people who made an impact while they were here, respectively.
Yeah,
you can enjoy little people. I saw Gary Payton's first game as a Buck. Was it a good memory? No, but I saw it. It happened. We all had gloves on because he was called the Gloves. So I mean, we did stuff, but
yeah. But it's it is stuff like that. Oh, God, Gary Payton. I almost forgot that like he was a Milwaukee Buck. Like I have to like get that in my head. And that.
Oh yeah. George Karl lied to my high school right to our face 2 weeks before he was traded. We're like, hey. We're like, because our people were grilling him. He's like, hey, we keep hearing Ray Allen's getting traded. Why would we do this? And George Karl's like, we're not trading Ray Allen. That's not going to happen. And then it does.
And then he traded Ray Allen. We're not trading Josh Hader. We're trading Josh Hader.
To be fair, they never said they weren't going to trade Josh Hader. They just said they wanted they'll always answer the phone. They always say
yes, and they answered the phone and dealt his ass to San Diego.
No, I was just going to say it led to Contreras, so I'm okay with it now.
Yes,
but it's at the moment that was a very dark moment of the Brewers' history. But anyways,
yeah, no, I mean it shakes up a team, but I think there is something to that same element though of like the players that are here, and I mean we idolize these guys as fans, but I think even the players are kind of like, hey, here's a great player in our locker room. Like, we love having this guy here. I mean, even you have dudes like Mike Moustakas, who is not making the Hall of Fame ever, but he's remembered fondly in Milwaukee and Cincinnati and wherever, or Kansas City, I should say, not really Cincinnati. That wasn't his highlight years, but you have somebody who comes for one of those playoff runs and they have a huge moment, a huge hit where, Tony Plush, right? Like, that's the
Well, yeah,
the
and
guy.
vibes. One hit and vibes, and that guy is a legend in Brewers fandom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was already a legend, I think, off the vibes alone, but then coming up with like the big hit to send them to the NLCS for the first time in, however many years that was,
Yeah.
2030, but it's stuff that immortalizes you here. And like, so it's like to the point where it's like, yeah, every time he comes back, people get on him. Or like, yeah, let's talk about Jeff Jenkins before. Jeff Jenkins is not one of the greatest players really to ever play, even for the Brewers, but people loved him because he had the shtick of like looking like Brett Favre, but also he was a pretty good player for the Brewers in a time when they were not a good team.
That dude could hit, and like those stats nowadays, he'd be a top 10 player. That's what's crazy. Like,
I know the sliding bar too of how much offense has diminished a little bit, but I mean, that era of the Brewers, I think, brought a lot of people in. I know for me personally too, like, I mean, growing up, like, I always went to games, but it wasn't really until I hit high school, college, that I could start getting into it again, which was kind of the Fielder, Weeks, Braun era, like, as they were starting to come in, which got, I think, a lot of people on board with Milwaukee. So this is a little before I think you even showed up, Fred. But yeah, that was kind of the renaissance, I think, again, of like Milwaukee baseball is back after many years of just sort of being. I mean, you have the label of being the diehard, John, but being suffering through the hard years.
Fred, when did you come to Milwaukee?
I moved here in 2007.
That is a good time to come.
So Fred was the good omen then, basically coming
Right.
there.
Usually am.
Brought about winning baseball in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
Now you can't leave.
I heard Fred's the first person to do Barbenheimer. He did both movies the first day.
I almost feel like we need to do another Oscars episode. I'm just like Jones and more conversation.
Yeah, bring me on for movies. Let's do a different one. I'll dress up with movie attire instead of Brewers.
Yeah. But one local hero I'll also talk about, John, because I wanted you to speak a little bit to I think what's gotten you a little bit of a social following. I don't know if you'll admit that or not, but is when Brent Suter was here and doing a lot of the promotional videos. And I don't know if you want to tell the little story behind even your account name that you got on there.
Sure. I definitely got popular because of him. My Twitter account was Brewers Raptor for the long. I mean, it still is, but when I first changed over, I was pretending to be Brent Suter's actual Raptor because his nickname was Raptor because he would act like that and look like that when he was in the minors. And so the origins from that is actually when I first started the account, I was in 2019 when you brought up Mike Moustakas. I was Mike Moustakas' actual moose. And so it was just
that's great.
With a terrible photoshopped Brewer hat on. And then I just would only so I would follow the Brewers, Mike Moustakas, a couple of the players, and then I would only comment on that and do moose gifs. And so then I was do that so 2019 was his last year there, and then he switched. And then after like asking some people, and I kind of had a little bit, I probably only had like 900 followers at that point. So then I switched to Brent Suter's actual Raptor, and that's when things kind of took off because I would respond to him. I would pretend I was a Raptor almost the whole time, that I was literally his actual Raptor.
Yeah.
And then the Brewers were too cheap to sign him for $3 million last year. But then now it's full circle, like back like Moose. He's now with the Reds, his hometown team. So it's still fun. Still support him. Still love him. I hope he comes back as a coach. But my assumption is he's going to stay in Cincinnati. But he's still. But like you said, he was an important part of the Brewers. Like you said, the promotional campaign, getting a lot of social issues going, like recycling the earth, and just a good, smart dude that was with the Brewers.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of talk in sports about clubhouse guys, and like he's like, with a capital C, clubhouse guy. Like, he was somebody I think a lot of people were bummed. I mean, this is coming in, and not to date this podcast at all, it's coming in fresh off a time when Aaron Jones just got let go by the Packers, who was also a guy who I think a lot of people had a lot of love for, and was also capital C clubhouse guy. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, sports is a business, and ultimately they're going to make unpopular business decisions because you got people who are somehow determining that cash is better served elsewhere. But
Yeah, it was more. I think the Brewers just played the wrong hand because they were still kind of, I don't know, even like last year. I think they were just kind of panicking. I think the Brewers
Yeah.
kind of panicked a bit, and we did well because our team played well together, anyways. But they basically let go Suter quietly, so that the hope was that he would circle back around and sign for a lower contract. And
right,
for an aging specialty reliever, on paper it makes sense, but for $3 million you could have kept him. No reason to let him go to the Rockies. And I mean, but again, he proved how good he was at Coors Field. He lit it up. He did great, and now he's got a solid contract with the Reds. But yeah, just not a great move. Like you said, it's business. It's going to happen to everybody. But I think you could have waited 1 year. You didn't have to do that. Where I understand you had young people coming in. And Uribe, maybe Uribe doesn't show up last year if he's there, but it was dumb. But again, it happened. What are you going to do?
yeah, unpopular things
It made me have
happen.
to show my dumb face. So like, what are you going to do? Things happen.
Hey, well, I mean, things happen for a reason.
Right.
And I think maybe that's a perfect transition to get to our segment of coulda, woulda, shoulda, because obviously this is kind of all about the sliding doors. And I don't think, honestly, Fred, I don't think this topic applies to more things than a sports franchise, because literally in the moments of a team's history, you have nothing but a lot of like, oh, I wish this could have happened. I wish this should have, they could have done this or would have done that. They still should do this. And I think Brett Suter is definitely, maybe sound like I said Brett. I meant Brent Suter.
All right. Sorry.
Got Brett Favre in my head, but
Gotta stop that.
I know I'm just dong slinging everywhere, but I think one of the things that you could talk a lot about the Brewers is like, yeah, all these different sliding doors, and Brent Suter is a big piece that, maybe he wouldn't have made a big difference in the outcome last year, but I think you look at keeping the clubhouse together, in times of, trials that they're going through. That's a guy you like having around. I don't know. What are some of the coulda, woulda, shouldas though you would have? And it doesn't necessarily have to be about the players that were on the team. It could be just about like things you would want to see at the park, things you want to see with the surrounding environment involving the Milwaukee Brewers here.
So woulda, coulda, shoulda. Obviously, I would have changed the 2018 Game 7. That would have been nice. I would have loved to see a World Series, because that's really like, it's like a huge bucket list item is for me to see a World Series game while I'm alive. Obviously, I want to see them win, but I want to be in AmFam or whatever that's called when we get there again. I want to be there and just do that. Like, it's not going to be a price thing for me. It's like perfectly there. And like, even the last couple of years has been the worst timing in the world to go to a game. So in 2021, I was in Mexico for my buddy's wedding when we played the Braves, so I couldn't go then. 2020, that year doesn't count. 2022, we didn't make the playoffs. 2023, both those games, middle of the goddamn week. One was my daughter's birthday, and the next day was something else. So I couldn't do it then. So it's like every year I'm trying to go to these games, the playoff games recently, and I can't do it. And I'm ready. I'm ready to go to another playoff game and see them. I just want to see them win. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, I would say Yelich's kneecap, honestly, in 2019. Yeah. Again, this franchise is just pain. If that doesn't happen, Yelich, compared to his stats, would have won MVP 2 years in a row. And there's a very good chance we beat the Nationals and make a run. Because the players were emerging. Besides Burns sucking, everything else was hitting on cylinders. Moose and Grandal, like, it was our best offensive year ever. Who knows if our pitching would have done it, but we would have had a chance. And, just that. And then it's also when Craig Counsell started throwing in playoff games for us. Yeah. If you start going back to it and you want a conspiracy theory that's when he started giving up on this team, when he threw in Hader way too early. And apparently by 2019, he didn't know that he was one of the best closers in baseball. Who would know that, right? You only have a bunch of experience seeing that. And then woulda, coulda, shoulda. I'm actually in the camp. as much as Rick Schlesinger claims that we should not change tailgating culture in quotes around AmFam Field, I am all for a beer garden or taking some of those dumb parking spots away and putting something cool in. Like that's only going to enhance everything that's going on. Like I know that stadium is always packed, and eventually, like on popular games and concerts, that place is packed. But you could take a section, you have a little beer garden, you have a hangout spot, you just have a park area, you have something where you could have mini concerts, you could have performances, you could have little things that would just add to that culture. So that's what I would love to see them add on to stuff or do something in between there. Or like, if you cross that bridge from the Yount locker rooms, there's the bathrooms, and then there's that little event area that nothing happens. There's a stand of terrible merch, and then an event area that nothing's ever there unless you're there for a 5K. That could be easily used for something else that is not being used. So they could definitely be utilizing those spaces a little bit better for people there if they want something different.
Yeah, fully agreed on that front too. And as much as we did talk about the magic of the tailgating culture and all that, but there's plenty of space for all that, and there's plenty of space for other activities and other things outside there. I think they're a little too precious about that, and they overestimate how many people want to actually do it. Like a lot of people do it. It's like Fred says, it's a symphony, right? But there's all these different people of that. But you look at the Deer District downtown outside the Pfizer Forum, what a revelation that place is. It's hopping all the time now with the bars and all the different events that go on down there, and the space that they even have to like set up like marketplaces and stuff. Like that's pretty interesting. You look at I've been to St. Louis 2 years ago. I think I went to New Busch Stadium, and the strip mall, the restaurants they have right outside the stadium, like across the street from the stadium. And I remember going there with my partner, and I drove down there, and she and I were just like, man, this is really convenient to be able to go in somewhere, eat a sit down dinner, right, and then you're 2 minutes from the park. Like you can just walk right over, and you're inside. And I'm like, that's something that you can't necessarily do at Miller Park anywhere, really, unless you're front row. You've got a 10-minute walk pretty much from every point. So, I mean, and that doesn't necessarily change with your pitch there, but I think you definitely have at least opportunities to add something that brings people in for experience. If they're not just a tailgating person, maybe they don't know what it's about. Like for guests too, like to give them a chance to do something different that doesn't require them going to Blue Mountain and having to look up shuttles or something like that, right? Like,
right. Yeah, and thank God they're doing the license plate thing, so it's easier to get in, but doing nothing about leaving, which takes 8 years. Thank God they didn't do anything to help that out. Good job.
Yeah, they can only keep one thing at a time. That's revolutionary.
Yeah. Why do two things at once?
Yeah. Fred, are you privy to what happened to Christian Yelich with the kneecap thing? I was just thinking about that.
No, I'm assuming he heard it.
Yeah, so the whole thing was that, so I mean, I mentioned he won MVP in 2018. So John was talking about how he could have been back to back, but basically, early September game, he swings. Usually, guys foul the ball off their legs all the time, and they're fine. He just happened to hit his right kneecap, and the fucking thing exploded. Like it just
He hit himself in the kneecap, or the ball hit him.
Perfect angle off the bat. It just smashed right in. It just shattered the knee.
Yeah. Ball broke his kneecap. So he fouled the ball off of his knee, shattered his kneecap. And he just he started to finally look a little bit more like Christian Yelich last year, but it was a solid 3 years of he did not look like the same guy that he was before that. Yeah. And there's no way it's not related. I mean, how do you adjust your approach when you are basically have a reconstructed kneecap on your right leg?
Million different factors. Yeah. But last year he said he took the offseason to be off instead of so worried about being the franchise name and making sure he gets back to that. He just went back to, I need to play how I play and get back to what I do. And then last year was pretty good results. So you just hope that he's that consistent 20 home runs, 280 hitting, and just good OPS. That's just what we need from him. That's all we care about.
Just be a solid contributor.
Just don't stand there and take strike 3 in a playoff game against the Braves. That's what you don't do.
I wonder if anyone ended up with that ball.
No, there's no way they didn't burn it. It like it hit off his knee, and there was the visiting it bounced right to the locker, like the dugout. There's no
It
way.
was like the Grizzly Man videotape that they like burned after they didn't want anyone to see that.
No, I can't even remember the director's name, the weird director
I
guy.
couldn't either. And I made this dumb reference
Son
like
of
2 weeks
a
ago
bitch,
to
I
Tom, and I
can't
was like,
think
I
of
don't
his
know
name.
his name.
Not Hans Zimmer. It's
The
something
guy
like
who
that.
looks like this Tom, who let me see the baby Yoda.
Oh,
Werner Herzog.
Thank you. Why was I looking up Nosferatu to find this?
And ruined the franchise along with a player.
You must never show this ball to anyone again.
Never show sport.
Bury its
You
ashes
brought
where
this
no one will
treasure.
locate it. It's oh god, yeah. Terrible situation. I think the Brewers literally do have one of the worst streaks though of like key player getting hurt at the absolute last moment in the season when they could have been the biggest contributor. We talked about Raleigh Fingers in 1982. Like Devin Williams punches a wall in 2021. So he missed.
Brandon Woodruff last year.
Yeah. Shoulder falls apart, can't pitch at all in the postseason. I think you can literally look at every single postseason. Oh, Ben Sheets tearing his shit in 2008.
Yep.
Like it's just it's a franchise of heartbreak. As much as I love this team to death and I will cheer for them and I agree with you. I would love to see a World Series game one of these days. And that's my sliding door. I would have loved to just have that 1982 team just win it all. And that way that monkey is off our back so that it's not just constantly scraping and crawling to try and get to a World Series. And
Right. Yeah.
hoping that-
And then half of it's the trash talk. As soon as we can, not as soon as people can't say there's no rings, then they lose everything else. So.
Right. Yeah. It's like being a Minnesota Vikings fan, man. It's like,
True.
and I hate comparing it to that. But
It is the same. It's sad.
it is what it feels like a little bit. I would also add though, in addition to that World Series, I think, yeah, that 2008 team, I wish, they could have done a little bit more, but man, I think you're right. That 2018 team probably was the biggest one of like, if Chris Taylor doesn't make the most incredible diving catch in center field and, Yasiel Puig doesn't hit the ball like 2 inches further to the left than he could have, and then it's like, we're totally talking about a different game. Were you there at all? Were you at the game?
No, that was again when my daughter was born. So that was so my daughter was born October 6th. So that would have been the entire playoff series. So that would have been more of a being nice to my family and being like, I'm not just going to leave you and be, not be there so I can go watch these games. So I did say, if we go to the World Series, I'm going, doesn't matter. So I was waiting for that. Also, it was one of those things where
you have your limits.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There was no way I was going to miss that. But yeah, I watched Game 7 with friends. Like I did all those things. So like it was a hell of a season. They made Tom Hordecourt did a book on it, so that's fun to read about everything that happened. It was just a special team. 2011, we could have done something, but our pitching decided to fall apart, and so again, heartbreak after heartbreak. And Brewers have a good window right now, and I just hope something happens, and the future looks great for Wisconsin sports. And you just hope that the Bucks helps a lot. The fact that they won in 2021. Helps with mental health a lot in Wisconsin, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. If you follow the Bucks, Packers, and Brewers, it's like, yeah, in Giannis we trust right now. Fred, do you have any coulda, woulda, shouldas you would add for the Brewers?
So, I mean, it's because it's all going to come down to like amenities and the experience for me.
Sure.
I know like Miller Lite is probably pretty closely tied to the Brewers, but I feel like in Baltimore, there's a beer called National Bohemian, and it's dirt cheap, and it's the beer of the Orioles. And when you go to an Orioles game, you can get that substantially cheaper than the other beer. I feel like the Brewers being called the Brewers should have kind of like a garbage logger 16 ounce that they sell that is theirs.
You would think that would be great.
Yeah, and it just kind of to me that seems like a weird no-brainer thing when like Baltimore has that and they're not a beer, they're not really known for their beer.
Yeah.
I think there was a thing where there was like, well, even last year they tried selling beer into the 8th inning and they quit after a month because people went crazy. I think the reason we don't is because people would abuse that privilege to the maximum.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, the state of Wisconsin has a little bit of a drinking issue. And
Yeah, if you had a beer for $7 instead of 16, everyone's drinking that. It would be untapped by second inning every game.
yep. Yep. I think that's why somebody said like it is even like dollar beer night in Chicago for the White Sox that they had that one upon a time, and they was like that was the worst promotion ever because
it was a
chaos.
Nightmare.
Yeah. But I think the sponsorships that the Brewers have had, there's been some issues with that. I think just even losing like Clements and Miller as the brand name is such a weird thing to me. I can't wrap my head around. Like these things have been staples of that team for so long, and now I mean Usingers is also a local sausage maker, so I think you're at least replacing kind of one for one. But going from Miller to American Family Field instead of like, I don't know. I mean, Leinenkugel, it's not that they would have the money to really pull it up, but it's like at least it would feel a little more sensible to have like the Liney Dome or something.
Well, we have the Liney's Deck now. They
That's
take
true.
over that restaurant and the brewery, which is actually cool. I do enjoy going there and hanging out and having a beer. But that was on Miller also could have ponied up. They're not struggling. People are not buying beer, so they could have easily ponied up if they really wanted to. And here's the thing: is we've lost that aesthetic, sadly, in sports. The fact that the Clippers arena is now called Crypto.com Arena.
Yeah.
The fact that sports fans across the world didn't rise up and because football people are used to that already across the world, soccer play like fans, because their jersey, they're just pegged with terrible sponsors and their arenas. So they don't care. But like America, the fact that that's happening and no one rioted and tore down the sign, like it's over. Like we're never going to have cool names again, really. And it's unfortunate. It's going to be all insurance companies and big names and billionaires who have weird company names. So it's just sadly the state of things.
The NFT arena or something. Yeah. That's next after it. Should we get to our power rankings? Unless you guys have any other coulda, woulda, shouldas you want to talk about.
I'm good.
Sure, I think I'm ready.
All right. So power rankings this week for the Milwaukee Brewers. And I mean, I feel like, well, this will probably be the chance to really talk about the glory versus all the pain that we had to go through. But it is the top 3 moments of the Milwaukee Brewers. John, as our esteemed guest, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Just a couple of big moments for me, you're saying?
Yeah. I would say that the top 3 moments, and I think look, we can take it very loose or very literal. The top moments of the team's performance, or it could be the top moments of like, I was there, I saw this thing happen, and that was super cool. Or it was just like, hey, I had this awesome experience where I got to go on the field or something.
Sure. So yeah, I'll go very quickly because I have 3 very easy moments. So 2008, when we won the wild card game, I was at my friend Ken's house. We were watching the Packers lose terribly to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had the orange old school jerseys. I still remember that. It's a core memory. So we were watching the Packer game, the Brewer game to get into the playoff to the wild card, and the Marlins game where they had to help win so the Brewers could get that wild card spot. So I specifically remember watching all that together, watching Wes Helms, Brewers legend, hit a home run for the Marlins to help them win, to help the Brewers get in. And then as soon as Braun hit that home run, me and my buddy did an invisible band around his house for 20 minutes straight. So just different instruments doing mime, just like just like around his house for 20 minutes as just a moment for Brewers fans to be happy again. And there's hope for the future. Again, in 2011, when the Brewers won the division, I wanted to go that weekend. I was scheduled to go Saturday. There was a chance I could win Friday. I actually saw like the Riverside Ballroom had the Dr. Seuss like like it was improv puppets, but it was like rated R adult theme. So I saw that
Avenue
shit.
Oh,
Q?
that's funny.
Not Avenue Q. It was like Puppets Unleashed. So it was
Oh,
like
okay.
So it's like
Oh.
the redhead guy from like Friends and Showgirls was in it. That was fun.
Oh,
So I
nice.
took him after. And so we were at a bar, and the Brewers won the division in 2011 for the first time in forever, where all the confetti came down. Some of my friends were at the game, and I kept texting "Go Marlins" so they would lose, so they could win when I was there, and they didn't let that go for years against me. And so, but then going to the game that next day, when they won the division, everyone celebrated. The confetti was still all over the seats, where you could grab confetti and put in your wallet. Like just a good aura there that whole season. And then the third one, as I say, when I think I'm pretty sure I was in college, where the Prince Fielder and Ricky Weeks debuted the same day. It was a Saturday,
Oh, nice.
and we were in the bleacher section, standing room only, because it was both their debuts. A bunch of my college friends tailgating. I have another core memory because that game they both hit their first home runs right in that
Yes.
section. So we got to see Prince Fielder, Ricky Weeks debut, first home runs, and then I just have a core memory of. So we're all in the stadium. We're getting excited to watch the game. A couple of our buddies have not shown up yet. We go to the back of the standing room only section, and we look over to the parking lot, to the back where you could walk in, and there are them two kicking a red Solo cup around like playing soccer. So we're in there about to watch the game, and they're just outside having a good old time by themselves, just kicking red Solo cups around on the ground for no reason. So those are my big three moments.
I feel like not enough people who maybe are not Brewers fans will appreciate that third one as much as they should, because that was kind of like, and I do want to talk a little bit about before we let you go about like the new era that's about to come up here, but that was the like introduction of like, this is going to be the new Brewers. These are your new guys. I mean, even pre-Braun, this was like, here's going to be your new superstar. Prince Fielder is going to be the guy. Ricky Weeks, I think, one of the most underappreciated players now, and I'm so excited he's back as a manager on the team too. But it was a page turn from 5 years of just kind of crap, and yeah, it was good. So that's a great memory. That's awesome. You were there to see that in person. Very fun.
Cool.
Fred, would you like to share your three moments?
I mean, if it comes to the Brewers, it's probably just going to be the one game that I went to. But
Do it, baby. Do it. You want to do baseball?
I
moments?
quite
Do you have
enjoyed
three
your-
baseball?
I'm sorry.
Do you have three baseball moments that you want to share?
Oh,
You can
sure.
go
Yeah, that's
beyond
a little
that. Yeah.
easier. Like I said, I remember my grandmother taking me to Orioles games because I think it was my grandfather wanted me to go with him, but I wanted to go with Granny, one of those deals. So like I think he gave the tickets to us to go, and that happened a few times. I remember also going to a not a Brewers game, Braves game. And this is when I was very not into sports and going to sports, and the fourth Harry Potter book had just come out like the night before. And I remember going to the game. I had the book in the car with me, and I was going to bring it into the stadium and read during the game. And my mom got very upset. She was like, no, you're not going to bring that. You're going to watch the game. You're going to have a good time. Yada, yada, yada. Get inside this stadium. I look around, and there are several people reading the Harry Potter book in the stands. Like multiple people. One person right behind us. And I just remember looking back like, is it good? And they were like, yeah. I was just like, okay. So then
That's
number
funny.
one was the time that we all went together. It was a good time. Tom brought out the little grill. I still have some of his propane tanks, I'm pretty sure. Tom, I'm not sure where they are now. I moved recently. But I'm just saying I did have them, and it always reminded me of that time we went.
I'm tickled that you remember that, and that's a word I stole from my great aunt. But it's I did have this Weber grill that I had won from a work Christmas party, and that thing got so much mileage. I think it's on its last legs because stuff like broke, but it was like the perfect tailgating grill. I took it everywhere, the Alpine to Miller Park, and yeah, I'm glad it has a lasting memory for you, Fred. And yeah, like I said, I think we're overdue for going back again because
Go.
it's a hell of a time. I haven't tailgated in a while, and I'm overdue.
You
So
gotta go. Do it.
no, I think I'm hopefully gonna make well, I think at the time of the release of this episode, I may have already gone to opening day.
Oh,
I think we're gonna be uh yeah, so that's definitely on the ledger. But I would say for me then, for top three, I was trying to think. I wrote down some ideas. So I've been like, wait, do I want that one? Do I want that one? Uh but one of the moments that was my favorite, and I think I'll talk about at least one where I was there and one or two when I was not. Uh, the first time they made the championship series back in 2011, my dad surprised my family, so it's just my sister, my mom, and I, with tickets to Game One of the NLCS. So Gallardo was pitching against or no, or was it? Yeah, I think it was the Cardinals, and he got tickets behind home plate. And we were like, "How did you get these?" He's just like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about where and how." He's like, "Just no, I pulled some things together and I got these, and it was incredible. It was such an exciting game. We had a great time, and that was like one of the coolest experiences ever. It's just kind of seeing it was the first playoff game I think I'd ever gone to. So maybe actually it was the Diamondbacks. Maybe it was the NLDS now that I'm thinking about it. Because I think Gallardo pitched like an 8-inning shutout. And another guy who I think was very underrated. We could probably sit here and list all the guys
for
that
sure. No,
don't.
amazing pitcher, fantastic. Just
Yeah.
great.
But yeah, so I just remember that was like my first ever playoff game. My dad pulled that together and I was forever grateful. My dad is a baseball fanatic. I mean, he played forever in high school and after
Forever in high school. Wow.
Oh, I mean, starting in high school is what I
Yeah.
meant. But he played like independent league and then softball forever. And he just, I don't know, he instilled a lot of baseball in me. So I owe him for pretty much all my Brewers fandom. But yeah. And then I think he and I had a chance to go to that game 7 of the NLCS in 2018. And even though the result was not desired, that was pretty cool to be in one of like, I think the most high stakes game of my Brewers going career because literally thought we're going to win and be able to celebrate going to the World Series for the first time.
Yeah.
Only for Yasiel Puig to completely break our hearts that day.
Our bullpen they were done. It was over.
Yeah.
It was just too many out. We just needed a 6-inning start from that game to get going.
Yeah, but it was just too much to ask, but it was still a very, very cool moment. Another thing where I think we ended up just finding what the cheapest tickets possible and just went.
Yeah,
like
sure.
hundreds
You
of
got
dollars.
it. Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, what are we gonna do? Not go and not be there if this happens? So, but yeah, like I think I just mentioned it too. Like my dad and I, it's one of the things we share the most in common. I think is a love of baseball, and so every moment I think I'm with him watching baseball is a cool moment. So, very happy I've had those things. And then I think the last one I will say, and this one I had to watch from the couch as well, is probably when Braun clinched that game 162 back in 2008 to get into the playoffs for the first time, hitting that home run. Because I have a visual memory of my head of being in college and hitting that home run, Brian Anderson on the announcement, just screeching in excitement. And I think I leaped off the couch and just was like, yes, like just threw my arms up because it's like you knew at that point they were winning that fucking.
Oh yeah, it was over. Yeah, it was just they should have just called it. They should have just called
it. it was one of my happiest moments though, because just to have been following the team for so long to actually see them back in the playoffs and playing really meaningful baseball. So is all cool. I mean, I could go on and on, but it's those are the things that really hit me the most. And yeah, I hope like hell that they can make some more great memories coming up here. And I guess maybe so we don't usually do like an extra segment, but John, since we are talking about the Milwaukee Brewers and we're at the very beginning of the season here, how do you feel about the current squad?
I think it's going to be hella fun. If people still say that, but it's going to be a frustrating year probably at several times, but it's going to be so fun to watch these guys especially when I posted yesterday a proposed starting lineup. That's a really fun starting lineup that I haven't seen in a while. We've got
Mhm.
some vets coming in, but they signed a couple hitters. We got a bunch of second years guys. We got one of the best hitters in the league coming up with Churio, and it's going to be fun, man. It's just going to be so fun. Last year we won 92 games. We didn't have Woodruff. We don't have him again. Burns is gone. Yes, pitching might be tough, but the way they're building up starters is good. And I think the offense is just going to be so fun. And we're going to have, and here's the thing. We won 92 games last year. We didn't have Rice Hoskins. We had Rowdy Tellez, barely.
Yeah.
We won 92 games and we had Willie Adames with maybe his worst career year. And people were hurt all year. And so that was winning 92 games. And the fact that people have this team winning 76 games this year is insulting. And I can't wait to cash those bets that I've already made. So
Yeah, that's a slam dunk over for sure.
That is not a slam dunk. I can't say, but yes, slam dunk over. I'm going to say no, and then yes, because that's ridiculous. For losing 2 people does not mean you suddenly lose 15 games the next year.
Yeah, I hear you. I think it's an exciting as hell team. You have Sal Frelick, who is going to be playing third base this year, which is still insane to me considering he came up as an outfielder. And then obviously Jackson Churio. Like I think he's going to be potentially the next big thing for Milwaukee. I mean, we're hoping that he's going to follow through and carry this team for the next decade plus. I mean, we invested in him already, so that's a name you'll get to need to know, Fred. Jackson Churio. And I think that
I appreciate it.
Yeah, just giving you the. Remember we were talking about in the Oscars episode or the best movies episode. Buy your season tickets now. Well, I mean, you don't literally have to buy your season tickets because they've expensive. Yeah. But mentally, you can buy those season tickets and remember that name. So I think that does get us to the end of this episode, though. John, thank you so much for coming again. Before you go, I know you plugged a little bit of your social kind of incidentally, but is there anything else you would like to plug?
No, that's a big one. Follow me at Brewers Raptor. I'm at John Egan Stuff. That's my website. That's Instagram, Threads. When I tried to do Brewers Raptor as Threads, and they ruined my account because they claimed I wasn't real. So that sucked. So no, I'm not on Threads as much, but I'm under there. So there's another Brewers podcast is my podcast. So subscribe to that. That's always good. I also have a Facebook group called Another Brewers Facebook group. So join that. Just anything Brewers sports, and see me out there. I'm usually touring around Wisconsin and the Midwest, so usually have dates up.
Very cool. Yeah, check that out. And yeah, sorry again. Website name is
JohnEganStuff.com.
Got it. All right. Definitely give those a look if you guys want to find out more from John. And Fred, anything you want to plug?
No, I'm just going to go ahead and let you plug the podcast there, Tom.
Yeah, I'm going to go real quick because we got a lot of convenient links now. We got our link tree with all of our social, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. We're trying the Threads thing too. We're hoping that maybe it'll pick up. You can rate and review this episode. Just scroll down whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're getting your podcasts.
It takes a second. It takes a second to do those things.
It does.
And rate and review John's podcast too, because honestly, he deserves it as well. Put some great stuff out over there, talking Brewers all the time, which is so awesome. Because honestly, there's not enough Brewers podcasts out there. I wish there were.
I know. I decided to take my talents and be hyper focused on maybe the smallest market of fans in the entire world. Really smart thinking for me. Not Packers, which is worldwide, or Bucks, which is the top team right now. I did the Milwaukee Brewers, maybe the most centrist fan base in the entire world. That's how I went all in.
But see, John, you could be a guy with a Yankees podcast, or you could be a legend with a Brewers podcast.
That's true.
Think about that. Find us. Our Patreon link is now live. We talked about it last time. You guys can sign up for our Patreon, find more resources there, and our link tree has other links and our email. You can find us. And stay tuned for next time, where on our main feed, we'll be talking about the Creed movie franchise.
Ooh.
And our next Patreon episode, Fred, we have decided on the best video games we played in 2023.
Yes.
Excellent. So stay tuned for those. John, thank you so much for joining us again. We really appreciate it. Great to bring all the Brewers knowledge here.
Thank
Yes,
you all. This
thank
was
you
great.
so much.
Yeah.
you.
And
Next
Thank
time,
you all.
Fred, it'll be something you know about.
No, this actually was really great. I learned a lot, but yeah, we'd love to have you come on and talk about like sports movies or something. That doesn't have to be sports.
Yeah, you pick it. You pick the topic, and I'll switch off next time.
Love
We'll
it.
do
I
it.
love it.
Yeah, we'll bookmark it. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Got no cares, 'cause all I wanna do is charge my phone and drive listening to you. And what they taught you about will